The morning sun had barely climbed above the factory gates when the ragged man walked in, a figure wrapped in dust, worn boots splitting at the seams, and a half-torn cap pulled low over a face marked by years of hard living. His name was Rafiq, though few cared to ask. He looked like the kind of man people avoided eye contact with, someone who had been left behind by time and fortune alike. Yet when he spoke that morning, his voice carried a strange, quiet conviction that cut through the laughter echoing around him. "I'll take 5 Mercedes trucks," he said calmly. The foreman, a tall man in a crisp shirt, burst out laughing, joined by a chorus of workers who paused their duties to gawk at the audacity of this stranger. "5 trucks?" the foreman mocked. "You can't even afford a meal, old man. Don't waste my time." Rafiq didn't flinch. He simply nodded once, eyes steady, a faint smile tugging at the corners of his cracked lips. "Mark my words, one day I'll come back for them. And when I do, you'll remember this morning." He turned and walked away. The laughter followed him out like a cruel wind. But Rafiq didn't look back, because deep down, he knew that a man's worth isn't written on his clothes or his wallet, but in the fire he refuses to let die inside. Before we go deeper into this incredible story of grit and redemption, take a second to support the message. If you believe in kindness, perseverance, and second chances, hit that like button, drop a comment with "Never Give Up," and subscribe to Kindness Universe for more powerful, true life stories that will move your heart. Years earlier, Rafiq had been a truck driver, one of the best. He had spent decades hauling goods across Pakistan's rugged terrains, through monsoon rains and endless desert heat. He had once owned his own small fleet. 3 aging trucks and a dream to build a transport empire that would secure his family's future. But fate, as it often does, struck cruelly. A fire broke out one night in his storage yard. Whether by accident or sabotage, no one ever knew. By dawn, everything he owned had turned to ash. Insurance never paid out, his business partners disappeared, and his wife fell sick not long after. Within a year, Rafiq lost his livelihood, his home, and eventually the woman he loved most. When she died, he stopped driving. He stopped believing in tomorrow, but not in himself. For years, he wandered from city to city, working odd jobs, fixing engines in roadside workshops, hauling bricks at construction sites, saving every rupee he could. People saw only a ragged man trying to survive, but inside him lived the same unstoppable driver who had once raced the dawn to deliver hope across 1,000 miles of highway. The world forgot Rafiq, but he never forgot who he was. One evening, he sat outside a dusty tea stall, grease still clinging to his hands after a long day fixing old Jeeps. As the sky darkened, an old acquaintance, Tariq, a mechanic from his younger days, recognized him. "Rafiq Pai, is that you?" he asked, shocked. "What happened to you, man? You were the king of the roads once." Rafiq smiled faintly. "The roads took everything from me, but they also taught me everything. They talked for hours." Tariq worked at a growing logistics company and mentioned they were hiring drivers and technicians. "You should come by tomorrow," he offered. "You're better than half the men there." Rafiq hesitated. It had been years since anyone offered him a chance. The next morning he walked into that company, clothes still patched, hands calloused, heart pounding. The office was filled with gleaming new trucks, all branded with the iconic Mercedes logo. It was there, standing before those machines that symbolized everything he'd lost, that he uttered the words, "I'll take 5 Mercedes trucks." They laughed, but Rafiq wasn't there to beg. He was there to begin again. Rafiq started at the bottom. He cleaned engines, changed tires, and drove short routes no one else wanted. He was invisible to most, a ghost in grease-stained overalls. But to those who paid attention, there was something different about the old man. His work was perfect. His trucks never broke down. His deliveries were always on time. He saved every paycheck, every bonus, every spare coin. He ate little, lived in a small rented room near the depot, and kept a faded photograph of his late wife beside his bed, her smile reminding him what he was fighting for. Months turned into years, and slowly people began to notice. One day, the company owner, Malik Sahab, stopped by the garage and saw Rafiq repairing an engine others had given up on. "You could have retired long ago," Malik said, half curious, half impressed. "Why keep working so hard at your age?" Rafiq wiped the sweat from his brow and replied simply, "Because I made a promise, to myself and to the road." Something in his tone struck Malik. Over time, the old man's relentless dedication earned him trust, then promotion. He began managing drivers, training newcomers, and handling route logistics. He didn't just fix trucks, he fixed the spirit of everyone who worked beside him. Still, no one remembered his bold words from years ago. The morning when a ragged man had walked in and declared he'd take 5 Mercedes trucks. But Rafiq did. Every time he saw that logo, he whispered under his breath, "One day." Then came the storm. A massive contract was up for grabs, a government project requiring long-haul deliveries through treacherous terrain. Several companies bid, but the risk was immense. Malik's firm needed a leader for the mission, someone who could manage a convoy through the worst conditions imaginable. Everyone hesitated, except Rafiq. "I'll lead it," he said quietly. The boardroom fell silent. "You?" Someone scoffed. "You're too old to handle something like this." But Malik looked at him and saw something the others didn't. A man who had nothing left to lose but everything to prove. "Let him," Malik decided. "He's earned it." For weeks, Rafiq prepared. He handpicked 5 of the newest Mercedes trucks, strong, efficient, and gleaming under the depot lights. As his fingers brushed across their hoods, he smiled. These were the very machines he had once promised he would drive. He trained his crew personally, inspected every engine, every bolt, every tire. When the day came, the convoy rolled out before dawn, engines rumbling like thunder as Rafiq led from the front. The journey was brutal. Rainstorms, landslides, broken roads, and nights colder than steel. But Rafiq drove like a man possessed, guiding his team with calm precision. When one truck broke down, he fixed it in the mud under flickering headlights. When food ran out, he shared his last piece of bread. When morale wavered, he reminded them, "The road tests those who fear it, and rewards those who respect it." After 17 sleepless days and nights, the convoy arrived. Every truck intact, every delivery complete. The client was astonished. The government awarded Malik's company one of the largest logistics contracts in its history. Newspapers ran headlines about the miracle convoy, and photos of the trucks, 5 Mercedes in a row, caked in dust and glory, spread across the country. When reporters asked who led the mission, Malik smiled. A man who once said he'd take 5 Mercedes trucks, and did. Weeks later, Malik called Rafiq into his office. "You've changed this company," he said softly. "You don't belong under someone's payroll anymore." He slid a folder across the desk. Ownership papers. Rafiq opened it and froze. Inside were documents granting him full ownership of 5 Mercedes trucks, the very ones he had led across the desert. His hands trembled. For a moment, he couldn't speak. His dream, the one that had kept him alive through hunger, loss, and humiliation, had finally come true. Malik placed a hand on his shoulder. "You earned this, Rafiq. Every dent, every mile, every tear. The world laughed at you once, but you turned their laughter into fuel. If this story touched your heart, remember, resilience is the language of those who refuse to break." Before we end, take a moment to support the message, like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Kindness Universe to help spread stories that heal hearts and inspire change. Rafiq didn't say much. He just walked out to the yard where his 5 trucks stood waiting in a line, gleaming under the golden evening sun. He touched the side of the first one, whispered a silent prayer for his wife, and smiled for the first time in years. He climbed into the driver's seat, turned the key, and as the engine roared to life, his eyes filled with tears. He wasn't the ragged man anymore. He was the man who had kept his promise to himself, to his past, and to the road that had never stopped calling his name. And when those who once laughed heard his name again, they didn't laugh this time. They stood silent, humbled by the truth that dreams don't die in fire. They are reborn in those who dare to walk through it.